Hey friends, this is Gavin Hardkiss from Hardkiss Music in San Francisco, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. This is our story episode today. I am Daz. I've got Steve back in the house. It just seems like forever since he's been on, which it has been forever. But it's great to have him back, the Mr. Original. And our special guest today is an author and broadcaster, and has written so many incredible books about Liverpool. As some of the biographies are Bill Shankly, Kenny Dalglish, Gerard Houllier. He's got a brand new book out about the Beatles called How the Beatles Rocked the World, which we'll also talk about as well, because we're massive Beatles fans. How can you
There
not
you
be?
go.
Yeah, there it is. It's I'm definitely gonna get that, or hope maybe our guest will send us a few copies over if we're nice to him. But the Liverpool Connection podcast proudly introduce Stephen F. Kelly. Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, guys. Good to be with you. Good to know that Liverpool are pretty strong over in America.
They are very much so. I just think every year it just gets bigger and bigger. Steve is our president of the official supporters club here in Austin, Texas, and he could tell you, how much the Liverpool supporters grown over here, and now obviously with the US tour coming, yeah, it's going to be a good summer. I hope. I know Steve, you're going, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the match against Man United in South Carolina in the summer, so looking forward to that.
Yeah, you got first hand looking at Mr. Slot and some of the players. So yeah, that'll be good. But I want to get. I know Steve will ask probably more about the books. I want to know, Stephen, more about supporting Liverpool and going to the match for the first time.
Well, there's a bit of a long story here. You have to remember, I grew up in the 1950s, and in the 1950s, Liverpool were in the second division. So if you wanted to go and see the big teams, the big players, the great players into the Tottenham Hotspur players, the great Tottenham side, or Wolverhampton Wanderers, or even the Busby Babes, you went to Everton. Now, my dad had gone to school with Dixie Dean, Bill Dean of Everton, and they were big pals. So my dad had, before the war, had gone to see Everton play on numerous occasions, and after the war, he took me to Goodison Park. And not that I wasn't going to remember in those days. A lot of people supported both sides. They'd go on one Saturday to go to Everton, the next Saturday they'd go to Liverpool. And it's the same in Manchester as well. One Saturday City, the Saturday it would be United. So my dad had taken me to Everton. I mean, he wasn't a fanatical supporter. I didn't go to every game or anything, but he'd taken me to Everton to watch. It was 1956. He'd taken me to Everton to see a foreign side called Bani Kostova. Everton had been knocked out of the cup, and the fifth round was being played, or the fourth round. And Everton because Everton were out of the competition, they fixed up a friendly game against a Czechoslovakian side called Bani Kostova, and this just appealed to me for some reason. Hence, I've been really into European football ever since. So I went to see that, and then I think a few days later, they were playing Manchester United, and I went to see that because it was the Busby Babes, and I had a mate who was a big United fan. So yeah, I went to see that. Then, and I went to see because I've been to see Everton. My dad took me to see Liverpool about 1958-59, and I think it was against Sunderland. To be honest, I don't remember a great deal of it. My dad wasn't very tall, so he never really liked the idea of being on the Kop, because the Kop had this ferocious reputation, even in those days. And he wasn't very tall, so he was always worried that he wouldn't see very much. but he taught me to see them play Sunderland. I didn't really kind of become a Liverpool supporter that much then, nor even an Everton supporter. I mean, I used to go to Tranmere Rovers because that was I lived in Birkenhead, so that was really my local team. And I used to go see Huddersfield Town as well because my grandparents lived in Huddersfield. So I was regularly taken to see Huddersfield Town play when we went to stay there. Now, I think one of the things that really got to me was that when I went to see my grandparents at Huddersfield, my Uncle Horace, with a wonderful name, Uncle Horace, who had a wife called Auntie Gertie, and Horace lived next door to none other than Bill Shankly. So I would occasionally see Bill Shankly in the garden because I used to go there on a Sunday before Sunday lunch. My granddad would walk me to Uncle Horace's, and we'd see Bill Shankly in the garden. And in fact, I mean, it really wasn't that big a deal in those days. But I would see him in the garden, and he actually got me. My uncle asked him to get me the Huddersfield Town autographs. So I got all the Huddersfield Town autographs, including one Dennis Law. So then, of course, end of 1959, Shankly comes to Liverpool, and I begin to think, I know this man, I've seen him. So I kind of become a little bit of a Liverpool fan then. But I don't start going on a regular basis until 1962. By then, I was kind of, I'd be 16 years old. So yeah, so if my dad, I could go on my own if I wanted then. So I started going to see them in 62, which of course was the season they won the second division title. And suddenly they were out of the doldrums and were a big side. And football was really taking off on the whole of Merseyside because Everton were doing well and went on, they won the title, was it in 63? Yeah. Liverpool were promoted to 62. Everton won the title 63. Liverpool won the title 64. Liverpool won the cup 65. Everton won the cup 66. If I got all that right. So they were exciting times. So it was that going to see them in that season when they won the second division title that really got me. And what really got me was the singing, the chanting. Well, it wasn't so much singing; it was chanting. There was the St. John chant, boom, 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 St. John, and Liverpool. And I thought I'd never heard. That was the first time that kind of thing was really heard at football grounds. And it was just the kind of theatre of it all that really got to me. And after that, after 62 season, I started going on a more regular basis until I left Liverpool in 68 and went off to college, university, and didn't see them so much for a few years, and then came back in 78 and started seeing them on a more regular basis all the time, and I got season tickets. So
who was your childhood football hero then?
Football hero. You mean a Liverpool football hero?
Don't say anyone else.
Who did I really like? I mean, I love Danny Blanchflower, who was captain of Tottenham Hotspur, because Tottenham won the double in 61. And Danny Blanchflower was great. But the Liverpool player I loved more than any other was Tommy Younger, Scottish goalkeeper, who always wore a yellow top with a very sexy yellow jersey. And he had this massive blonde curly hair. And I really liked Tommy Younger because I fancied myself as a goalkeeper right until, in fact, I played as goalkeeper right up until the age of 65. But I wasn't a bad goalkeeper, actually. I was a better goalkeeper than an outfield player. So, yeah, I always fancied myself as a goalkeeper, and Tommy Younger was my great hero. Billy Little was another, though Billy Little's best years had passed, and he wasn't playing on such a regular basis in the late 50s. When did he retire? He probably retired about 58, 59, 60. So, yeah, Tommy Younger.
Yeah, it's great to listen to who your heroes are, and going at 16 during the big Shankly days, and it's so funny you saying about your the names. My granddad's name was Herbert, and he used to go and again, this is why I do this podcast. It's an ode to me granddad. because I didn't listen to his stories back then, so I do now. But it's just it's nice to get people on that, you know, actually went to the Shankly games and be able to, you know, because I'm a 70s kid, so my first one was 76.
Okay.
So mine was, you know, obviously Paisley. But what, you know, at 16, for myself, you know, I used to always go with my granddad, but when I turned 15, 16, it was just a joy to be able to go with your mates because
Yeah.
you felt big, you know, you felt like an adult because you were able to pay on the turnstiles, which I miss that so much. Just being not being having to do it with my phone. I'd rather pay, you know, five quid or whatever it was back then rather than what it is now. Do you obviously miss those times?
Yeah, well, in some respects, yeah. I mean, it was all a bit of a pain queuing up the back of the Kop. And there was always that worry. And I have to say, fortunately, it only happened to me once, but there was always that worry that the gates would be locked. But the great thing was in those days was the spontaneity. You know, you could sit in the pub at lunchtime and say, oh, the sun's shining. Liverpool are playing Manchester City this afternoon. If anybody fancy going, yeah, come on, let's go. And there was that spontaneity, which you don't have anymore. I mean, you know what it's like. You've got to book. You've either got season tickets or you're trying to get a ticket months and months in advance. So the spontaneity is gone. And it wasn't always great fun queuing up outside the Kop. You know, you had these huge police horses pushing you against the wall to keep the line straight, stop people trying to bunk in. but it was yeah. I mean, there was that great, and that's yeah. I mean, there was always that fear that you might not get in, because I remember going to the Inter Milan game, and I think I got to the ground about 4 o'clock. And I think the gates had already been open. I think I actually got onto the Kop at 5 o'clock, and I think anybody who got there much after 5 o'clock probably didn't get in. So yeah, it wasn't always a lot of fun queuing to get into the ground. And I remember on that one occasion when I think it was against Aston Villa, last game of the season, when they won the title, I'd parked my car, tried to get in the Kop, couldn't get in. They closed the gates, so I dashed right round the Anfield Road end, got in a queue there. I get about three people from the gate itself and losed it. So yeah, so there was always that fear that you might not get in. But you know, I did. I mean, talking about going to games in the old days, I did an oral. I'm very much interested in oral history. I do a lot of oral history, which for people who don't understand what oral history is, it's about recording people's memories, getting people to talk about the past, about incidents, events, people, whatever. And I did a book about the Kop. And in 1990, wasn't it, when the Kop was closed? Ah, the man's got it. When the Kop closed, I thought, well, this is a good point here to actually try and gather people's memories of the Kop. What was it like going on the Kop in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and so on? I got there's some fantastic stories in that book. I mean, it was one of the most enjoyable books I've ever written. Because I go to people's houses and they say, come in, Steve, come in there. Do you want a beer? All right, I'll have that. I got some Kit Kats here. And they get all this food out and this beer. They would tell these amazing stories and they were always funny. I mean, that's the good thing about Liverpool people is the humour would come out. There'd be fantastic stories about going to games and the various things that happened to them. I mean, most of them had something to do with drink. and I can recount some of them to you at some point if you like. But they were so funny, and nobody else had ever done that about football. That book on the Kop was the first oral history, the first book ever done about football fans, and it was taking football fans seriously. That was the thing. Because there was a culture about going to football matches, as indeed there is these days. There was a culture then which no longer exists. And that's what I wanted to capture. And that was the first time anybody had ever really taken football fandom seriously. So there were great stories. And I even got an interview with the guy who was the son of Ned Doig. Ned Doig was a Liverpool goalkeeper around 1900, 1901. And he used to go and watch his dad playing. I mean, it's just amazing. And this was before the Kop had even been built, before, properly, certainly before it had a roof, because that was mid-20s. So you've got this guy. I mean, it wasn't a very good interview, to be honest. He was very old, very doddery. And it wasn't the best circumstances where I did the interview. But just to be able to talk to somebody and recount their memories of going to football matches in 1902 was just a bit mind-blowing, really. And then I got lots of interviews with people talking about the 1920s and the 1930s, going to games, going on the tram or walking to the ground. People used to walk to the ground, and they would walk 5 miles. They'd walk all the way from Bootle, go to the game, and then walk back home. And they would go in. A lot of people went to the game, would arrive. They didn't have any money. But people didn't have any money in the 1930s. So what they would do is they would walk to Anfield, and at 3/4 time, they would open the gates so that people could start coming out. And of course, what it meant was all the people, they'd be all outside. And they'd all come in. As soon as the gates open, they'd come in. Some people would be coming out, and there'd be all the herd of people going in. And there was that cat. And then they'd watch the last 15, 20 minutes, and then they'd walk home. I mean, all kinds of stories like that. And people going on their bikes and parking their bikes in somebody's backyard. And these are just great stories, Great humor.
That's what it's about, is just keeping these stories alive.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of going as a young person. There was this whole thing that you served your apprenticeship. You went in the boys' pen. Did you go in the boys' pen? Was it still going in 70s? Yeah, probably was, wasn't it? Yeah.
But I only went in there a few times, though, because my granddad would always want me next to him. He'd put me on his shoulders a lot. So, I went a few times, but I had a couple of mates that were always in there. And always told me some stories of what went on in there as well. It was like pretty hardcore. Some of the lads having a scrap, or some lads pickpocketing, But, I mean, I just love all the old stories. It's just great.
Probably wasn't so bad in the 1960s. I mean, I didn't go in there a lot, but I mean, there was that tradition. I didn't have a brother, so. A lot of kids went with their elder brother, and then eventually they'd take their younger brother or whatever, and then eventually they wouldn't go in the boys' pen anymore. They'd just go straight into the car. So I didn't have a lot of games in the boys' pen, some, but not so many. And when I started going on a regular basis at 16, I went by myself an awful lot, because none of my really close mates were into football. And the other close mate who I did have who was into football was a Man United fan. So I often went by myself, which is something that never bothered me, because it's a friendly place on the Kop, and you can't help but talk to the guy who's standing next to you or whatever.
Steve, I'm going to bring you in.
Hey, Stephen, thank you for joining us, man. It's such an honor to have you on the show, and I have somebody nicked my Boot Room Boys book, so I need to figure out where that one went. But I do have the Kop, and such a great read, and like you said, just an oral history, and I think that's one of the things that we love about this club, is that you can get together with a bunch of mates, just talk and have stories, and especially from people that have been around the club for a long time. The stories are endless, the history is endless, and it takes somebody that has the forthright to put it all on paper and share those stories with a wider audience. So we appreciate all that you've done, because as we kind of alluded to, the fan base has grown. I know that Daz and I, through this podcast, we wanted to kind of grow the fan base as well, bring more history of the club to a new audience. So we appreciate what you do as well. So I'm very excited about it. And one of the things I always ask the authors is like, what was the genesis of saying, hey, I want to write not only for a living, but, for the subject matter of footy, in Liverpool itself. I know because you're from there, that may have been an easy conversation that you had with yourself. But did you always want to be a writer growing up?
I think so. Although, I mean, I left school when I was about 15 and a half. And I went to work in the local shipyard, Camberlard, over in Birkenhead, because I didn't do particularly well at school. I went to a grammar school, but I didn't particularly like it. And I didn't do all that very well at all. And there was never any suggestion that I might go on to university or anything like that. So I went to work in the local shipyard as an apprentice draftsman, and I hated it. So fucking boring. Sorry. It was so boring. I just hated it. And I wasn't any good at it either. And a couple of things that happened. I used to go to YMCA in Birkenhead, and they had a theatre group then. I joined the theatre group and got interested in the theatre, got interested in a bit more in literature. But also when I was working at Camberlard, I got involved in the trade union. Got really involved in that, and that really kindled an interest in politics. I got a trade union scholarship to Ruskin College, Oxford, which was a college for mature students, mainly trade union students. So I went there. I mean, almost everybody was older than me, and they were miners and builders and all sorts of seamen. A great range of people who were there, and they were just an amazing education. So I had a couple of years there, and then I went to, and I'd started wanting to write when I was about 14, and I used to write bits and pieces and short stories and things like that. And when I got active in the trade union, I had a few things published in one of the trade union journal, and I was Ruskin College. Then I went to the London School of Economics, and I'd started writing for a weekly newspaper called Tribune. And Tribune was a sort of left-wing Labour Party newspaper. And when I left the London School of Economics, I got a job as a political journalist with Tribune. They took me on full-time. And that was it. I became a journalist. Had 5-6 years working in London as a political journalist. And then I got headhunted by Granada Television in Manchester. And I didn't particularly want to come up to Manchester, but they persuaded me to come back. So I came up on that. I said, come back up north. I didn't know Manchester at all, but I came up and gave it a try. And I loved working in television. It was great, really great fun. Did 10 years there. But then, that's I hardly get what happens. It was strange, really, because even when I was at Granada, I was a political journalist. That was my great passion, was politics, but my other great passion was football. And when I was at Oxford at the LSE in London, I could really only go and see Liverpool when they were playing in London. Because I didn't come home all that much, maybe at Christmas or Easter, and I get the chance to go and see them. So I didn't go around to Liverpool. That was when they came down to London. So I'm working as a political journalist, but also had this great obvious passion for football in Liverpool. And what happened, I was at Anfield with a mate of mine, and we were talking about cricket writing and what great writers there were writing about cricket. And my mate says, nobody really does it about football. There's no kind of really great football writing, is there? So we sat there and we said, well, there's Brian Glanville and there's Hugh McIlvanney. Oh, yeah. So I thought, maybe there's a book there. Maybe I could put a book together of some of these great football writings, which is what I did. And so I put this book together, took it to a publisher. I went and had a discussion with the publisher, and he said, well, I don't think it'll sell. I don't really want to do that. And the publisher was a big Tottenham fan. And funnily enough, I looked at a Tottenham book about the history of Tottenham, picture book. And I was saying, really good book, really looks really nice book, that Tottenham one. And he said, yes, he says, it's a great book, really, really nice. And then I said, there's one about Liverpool, though, is there? And he said, no, there isn't. Why don't you do one? So from going in to the publisher to talk about something else, I came out with almost virtually the contract to write a book about Liverpool. So I did a picture book, which was called You'll Never Walk Alone. And that set me off on a whole new career. I then I did one about Everton. He said,
Now, I was going to ask you which one was first, Everton or Liverpool. So I'm glad you clarified that, because I was like, okay, there's the Everton one and the Liverpool, and they came out, virtually around the same time frame, right? So as you're doing one, were you working on both at the same time?
No, not at all. No, the Everton one was about a year or so later.
Okay.
So yeah, once the Liverpool one was out, and the publisher said, "Hey, you've got to do one on Everton now." So I did one on Everton.
So they guilted you into doing one on Everton.
I'm afraid they did, yeah. But as I say, I mean, I'm not like the current generation who have that hate. We hate Everton, yeah, blue noses, etc. I never really had that, because I guess because of my dad. And my dad, I mean, Bill Dean was a friend of my dad right up to my dad's death, and I used to see him. I mean, sometimes he would visit our house, but I regularly saw him. My dad was in a club in Birkenhead. Used to go for a drink there, and I would regularly, when I went to my mum and dad's house, I would regularly go out for a drink with my dad, and there would be Bill Dean, Dixie Dean, sitting in the corner, and we'd sometimes sit with him and have a pint and so on. So I never hated Everton, but there you go. I'm an old timer.
Well, at least Liverpool are always first.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I don't mind. I'm happy for Everton to do well, as long as we're number one and they're number two.
Hey, Stephen, let me ask you some, obviously about this book, right? When at the time that you wrote it, taking away the standing in the cop, and then now obviously it's coming back. What were your thoughts about that, and how things have changed since you wrote this book?
You mean generally the way the culture has changed? Yeah. I mean, I've got 2 season tickets on the cop. Mm-hmm. And as for next season, I will have a rail. I'll have the standing rail in front of me, which I'm actually quite looking forward to, because I'm getting a bit older now. It's a bit tiring standing on the cop for an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day who must be 20, 25 years younger than me, and he refuses to go in the cop because he doesn't want to stand. He says he can't take standing for an hour and a half. So I'm actually quite looking forward to having that rail to lean against. To be honest, I think it's actually quite dangerous. I mean, I got guys who stand behind me who are great guys, but when Liverpool score or whatever, unfortunately, I go there with my son, who's sort of 6'2" and looks after me. I make sure I don't go toppling over, but it is quite dangerous. And it is quite, I've not actually seen any accidents at Anfield. I have at Wembley, but I've never seen any accidents at Anfield where people have toppled over the top and onto other people. Yeah, it's a different culture now, isn't it? It's sad in a way, because, as I was saying before, it's taken away that spontaneity and that ability to be able to decide you're going to go to the game at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon or whenever. You have to have season tickets now, or become a member, or whatever. It is much more complicated.
Yeah, last time I was at the Cup, I was in the very absolutely last row up top, so I could just lean back against the exterior wall. So I had no problem. I don't. But that's a long way up there to walk if you're a little bit older. It
is. Yeah. When I first went on the Cup, I had season tickets in the main stand from about 1983 onwards, and then I got fed up with the people who was sitting around us, who did nothing but whinge every game. Whinge. So we moved and went on the Cup. On the first couple of seasons, we were right at the back as well. They were quite fanatical at the very back, but we're lower down now. We got them a lot lower down now, and there's a good bunch of people. That means great. I've got these 4 women who stand in front of me, and they're all sort of small and blonde. They're all middle-aged. They're all in their 50s. They spend a lot of time on their phone swapping photographs of their grandchildren. but the four Scouse girls, and that if you went out on Saturday night with these four Scouse girls, it would be a great night. And they're just great. I mean, they're lovely, but they are die-hard Liverpool fans, and they know their stuff as well. And if something goes wrong, they go wild. And the abuse that they can hurl at the players or the referee. They don't abuse so much at our players, but opposition players and referees, they really get it in the neck from these girls. But it's great. It's wonderful.
Well, last year they must have just gotten crazy because there was a lot of things to yell at the referee for last season.
Yes. I've got all the referee haters around me. I mean, I try to be fairly objective. Sure, the referee gets it right, wrong sometimes, but they get it right a lot.
That's right. Dazza mentioned they have the new book coming out with the Beatles. We have a very good friend of ours, Jackie Duncan, that does the Beatles tours. So anytime we have people going over there, or when we go over there, we try to meet up with her as she takes us around to all the Beatles stuff. And what was the idea about this book? I mean, it kind of deviates away from some of the historical books that you've written in the past.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, really, I was, I got some very good German friends, and they'd come over to Liverpool, or to Manchester, where I live. And we'd gone to Liverpool for the day. And I went down Matthew Street, showed them the cavern, and we just got talking about the Beatles. And they were saying things like, the Beatles changed their lives. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, it wasn't up until the Beatles released this kind of counterculture that we actually, for the first time in our lives, started saying to our parents, tell us about the war. Because up to that point, German kids their parents never talked about the war, never said anything. It was a taboo subject. And what happened with the Beatles is that in a way they released this counterculture. I mean, the Beatles were totally irreverent. They didn't give a damn. And they were comical, they were mischievous. And they would say what they felt. And then when they were interviewed, they would just give it as you would. And in a way, and when I kind of looked then at what life was like prior to the Beatles, we lived in a very authoritarian world. You guys don't remember. But we lived in a very authoritarian world. Half of Europe was under Soviet communism, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Soviet Union. Spain was under a fascist dictatorship, Franco. Portugal was under a military dictatorship. Greece was under a military dictatorship. These were countries which we never went to as a young person because we didn't like their politics. Italy was a very, very, very strong Catholic country, very heavily influenced by the Vatican. France was a very, very Catholic country as well, under de Gaulle. Ireland, very Catholic country. The whole of Latin America was under military dictatorship. So it was a very authoritarian world. We lived in 1960s. We lived in a world where divorce was very difficult, where abortion was illegal, where homosexuality was illegal, where there was no equal pay for women, where women couldn't get divorced. If they'd been beaten up by their husbands, they couldn't claim a divorce from it. It was a very different world. And the Beatles kind of released a new culture. And then into the 60s, things begin to change. You get television programs to become a bit more irreverent, a bit more. That was this great satirical TV program that took the piss out of politicians and so on. And things begin to change throughout the 1960s. Abortion becomes legal. The Equal Pay Act for women, the divorce becomes a bit easier. Homosexuality it becomes legal, is allowed, and so on. And it was all the Beatles were at the core of this in a way. I'm not going to say that the Beatles were entirely responsible, but they were, I think, certainly they were, I guess the word today would be influencers. They were influencers who said, yeah, young people, what's wrong with being a young person? Young people have got views and opinions as well. And young people throughout the world begin to change. And as I say, young people in Germany started questioning their parents about the war. Yeah, young people in Czechoslovakia started questioning the communist regime in Czechoslovakia, which led to the Prague Spring, and so on. And people were beginning to listen to tapes of the Beatles in the Soviet Union. We were beginning to, because it wasn't allowed, but they were being smuggled into the Soviet Union. They were being re-recorded and distributed around the Soviet Union. And all these things are happening with young people. I mean, I haven't mentioned America. I mean, North America, prior to 1960, you had segregation. Black people couldn't go into black hotels or black cafes, and when Duke Ellington or Ella Fitzgerald came into town, they had to go into black hotels. They weren't allowed to be with other musicians who might have been in their band. I mean, it was a pretty appalling world we lived in. And, young people in America in the universities start revolting, as they do in the British universities. And in France in 1968, massive revolts. And in a way, that's what my book is about. It's about that counterculture and how important that counterculture was and how important the Beatles were to that counterculture.
I mean, they're still influenced to this day. Their music still resonates around the world. And, a lot of their music really becomes a force to use as part of the protest movements around the world too. Still, so yeah, I can't wait to read it. It'll be awesome.
Good.
Does it?
Yeah, it's well. I mean, all you need to do is what John Lennon did.
Yes.
Especially in America. You just listen to his lyrics, give peace a chance. It opened up a different avenue. And I think that's what a lot of musicians kind of did back then. They broke silence. And it's just four lads from Liverpool, but they created just mass hysteria that the media had to start listening to. They got the big break, I would say, probably Hamburg as well, when it first went there. But yeah, I mean, I always talk with my dad because he's a Stones fan and he doesn't understand the whole Beatles thing. I'm the Beatles side. Stones were too bluesy for me, while Beatles are rock and roll, full on. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait to read it because a lot of Beatles books is just more based on their music. So I like this side of it as well, just because so many fans, young and old, love the Beatles. They love them for the music, but all you have to do again, Paul McCartney is a vegan, very straight laced. Maybe not back in the day. We've heard some stories, but they're just people that you would sit up and listen to. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I do want to talk about your biographies. I mean, you've King Kenny, Shankly, and Gerard Houllier. Three of very successful managers. Two that were very successful.
I did Souness as well.
Yeah, he wasn't very successful with Liverpool, though, was he? I mean, player-wise, he was, but manager-wise, he had a horrible time. I put that on par with Roy Hodgson. Just not very good for us manager-wise. But I mean, you've so much work and so much research go into doing a biography. I mean, a family letting you write about, the husband or, son, that's got to feel good for you, being able to put so much work into it. And get so much back from it. So with Shankly, can you tell us a bit more about that when that first came about for you?
That's a good question, actually. I can't remember what kickstarted the Shankly biography. No, I can't remember. Oh, I can't remember what it was that suddenly made me think, oh, I'll do a biography of Shankly. I suspect it was probably because of Huddersfield and having known him, and in a way, him being responsible for me becoming a Liverpool fan. Yeah, well, I mean, it was an obvious biography to do in a way. So, I mean, I had some cooperation from the family. I mean, I did an interview with Nessie, um, and I knew. Yeah, I did the interview with Nessie. I mean, I didn't get I just did a nice long interview with her. I didn't get a great deal else help from the family. His daughters, I did an interview with his daughters. Funnily enough, one of his daughters had worked with my cousin in a solicitor's firm in Liverpool. So yeah, so I had them and the interview with Jesse. Most of the, in a way, none of my certainly neither the Souness nor the Dalgletian books were done with any cooperation. And I'm not bothered about that because in a way, I don't want to. And what I didn't want to do with any of those managers was to do what I'd call a hagiography. I wanted to be able to be critical. And I think if you do a book with the family's consent and the family's cooperation, etc., there is that danger that you can't be objective and critical. And I wanted to be able to be critical. Not that there's a lot that is critical in either of them. Certainly there's not much in the Shankly. There was a bit more scope to be critical of some of the things that Dalglish had done at one point at one point. But and there was, again, with Souness, by not being doing the book with him, I was able to be a lot more critical. And that's probably the book where there is most criticism. Although I have to say, I rang him up, I got in touch with him, I dropped him a note and said, can I do an interview with you? And I was surprised because he rang me up and said, yeah, I don't mind you doing the book, but I don't want to cooperate. I don't want to actually have anything to do with it. But, at least he rang me up and had a chat with me and was very friendly, which I appreciated. So writing a book, doing a biography, it's about talking to people who knew him. Certainly with Shankly, it was talking to a lot of the ex-players, loads of ex-players, other managers as well, researching newspapers, documents. It was a lot more difficult in those days because you didn't have the internet. I mean, it's dead easy now with the internet. If you want to know what happened when Liverpool played Manchester United in 1972, you just Liverpool United 1972, and it comes up and give you the team, says get a whole match report. When I was doing that, I had to go to the library in Liverpool and look up the Liverpool Echo, or go to the library here in Manchester and look something up. So it was a lot more difficult. But it was great fun doing the Shankly book. I really, really enjoyed that. And it's been by far the most successful of all the books.
Yeah, and I mean that just to be able to I mean, I'm still bewildered that you can look across your garden and Shankly's out there. That's what just amazes me, because it is we live in a different world now. Footballers in this bubble.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember hanging out at Melwood many a day to get autographs, and it was a lot easier then. A lot of them would just walk out of Melwood. But now they're in their cars and boom, they're gone.
Oh,
it's a day's job and then they're off. But back then, a lot of the footballers, and I believe Shankly used to walk to Anfield, didn't they?
Yeah, but he probably did. Yeah, no, but not well. Wasn't that far actually. No, they probably did. Yeah, well, you'll know this coming from Formby. I went for a walk in Formby last year. I walked along the beach and from Formby and came down Freshfields. And there's that road. Do you know the road that leads down to the station in Freshfields?
Oh yeah.
And these houses, and they're all footballers' houses. I think Klopp lived there and various others. Wow. I mean, they're all big gates, big gated communities. Astonishing, huge houses. And that's where they live now. I mean, it's a bit different to the way they used to be in the old days.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, times have changed. I mean, money, kind of runs the sport now. Whether it's good or bad, that's for everyone to decide themselves. But it's just I get it every year now. Like the summer comes along, and some Liverpool fans want to win the transfer league.
Yes, yeah.
It's just like we have 2 more months of the transfer window still left, but people just want somebody signed as soon as the end of last season finishes. I just think there's just such a generational change now in the way we look at football. But what are your thoughts on like the modern game and obviously
I mean, it's all about money, as you say. I mean, I went to a conference on football it must be about 20 years ago now. No, in fact, it's probably more than 20 years ago. Yeah, it was just when the Premiership league was starting. The Premiership was starting. I've had it 30 years, isn't it? And I remember going to this conference and standing up and saying, "You mark my words, the bubble's going to burst." Kind of 30 years on, and the bubble has got bigger and bigger. I was completely wrong. I just thought it would all burst. I mean, it's mad. I mean, it's become the most important thing in life, football, and the economy. I mean, the money is just staggering, utterly staggering. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen the news today, but Manchester United are making 250 staff members redundant.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, they're making these and I know a couple of people who work at Old Trafford, and they're probably going to be made redundant. Meanwhile, the players are picking up £250,000 a week or £350,000 a week, and it's bonkers. It's absolutely crazy. And the transfer fees are just ludicrous. So yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I really don't like it, but
I talk to some mates, and they seem like they're telling me they're falling out of love with football, which is such a shame to hear. Especially with VAR, and again, it's VAR isn't the problem. It's the people who are working the VAR that's the issue for me. But when you celebrate a goal, you celebrate your whole heart, your whole body, and then to all of a sudden you've got to wait 2 to 3 minutes.
Yes,
you lose that passion, and then the referee will go goal, and then you just kind of go, all right. So spontaneity has been lost in the sport. But you watch Euros or you've watched AFCON, and VAR seems to work okay. So I don't know if it's an English thing. But I understand people, the money situation, the greed in football has put a lot of people off. And I understand that. And also same with, I know me, Steve, and a couple of other lads have had this talk. I know £2 isn't much to many people, but like going, the price for a ticket, £2 increase, 2% increase is a lot to some people. I know Steve has a different view on things, and I know everything's gone up. You know, that you're allowed your own opinion. You know, whether agree with Steve is another thing, but you know, that's what I love about this podcast. You're allowed an opinion. Your opinion's yours, whether you think it's good or bad. You know, you have an opinion. And what's yours on like the ticket increases, and then there's this like horrible stigma which I can't stand of this day tripper stuff. You know, um, and then people going, the locals aren't getting, you know, to see Liverpool the way they should. What is your thoughts on all of that? Because I just think we're a global fan base. This isn't the 1950s anymore. This is 2024. Liverpool wouldn't make the money they would if it wasn't for the global fan base. And I just think that sometimes there's a stigma on people that come across, you know, spend thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars or whatever to come to a match. You know, that's their holy grail is Anfield. You know, whether it once in their lifetime they've saved up. So what are your thoughts on the increase and about this whole stigma of day trippers?
Well, on the increase, I mean, I don't feel it so much because I'm an old age pensioner, so I get a cheaper ticket anyhow. I pay roughly £500 for my ticket. My son pays about £750 for his. Well, it had been frozen, hadn't it, for a couple of years, so it didn't worry me too much. But I can understand, you know, there are a lot of people on Merseyside who don't have the money. On day trippers, yeah, I mean, and I do sometimes wonder how they all manage to get tickets. Though the club does encourage that, and I mean, they do. Those, as you will know, those foreign, the out-of-town clubs, they particularly the international clubs, they get tickets allotted to them. I know that the Swedish club supporters club get so many tickets allotted to them per year. Whereas the rest of the people sometimes struggle to get tickets. Though I think it's a lot easier if you live in Liverpool and you've got a Liverpool postcode. I think it's a bit easier to get tickets. And I think if you're under 12 or whatever it is, it's a bit easier as well. But on the day tripper thing, I mean, most of us have probably been to see games abroad anyhow. I mean, I've been to Barcelona, to the Nou Camp on numerous occasions. I've been to Real Madrid on numerous occasions, not to watch English clubs, but to watch, you know, El Clasico. I've been to Roma, I've been to Cologne, I've been here, there, and everywhere to watch football matches. So I'm a day tripper to that extent. Yeah, and in a way, it's kind of nice that the people do come to Liverpool to see Liverpool play. And you have to, you do, you know, from a commercial point of view, you have to encourage that. You have to encourage that, don't you? Because they will all go to the shop and they'll spend £150 per visit or whatever.
I wish it was only £150 per visit, man.
I meant in the club shop. Yeah, do you pay more in the club shop?
In the pub, in the food.
It's also it's used the economy of the city of Liverpool as well, because they come, they stay in hotels, they go out drinking, have 2 nights in a hotel, they'll go out drinking, they'll eat out. It's a lot of money to live to the economy of the city.
You know, you mentioned the economy of the city, so I would imagine that these past few years, as the Blues have entertained thoughts of being relegated, you probably weren't. You know, obviously you're not bitter. You've already stated that, but you know, there are a lot of Liverpool fans that would have loved to see them being relegated. I, for one, personally, you know, I think about the city as a whole. It wouldn't have been good for the economy of the city to have Everton go down to the championship. So I was just wanting to hear your thoughts. I'm pretty sure I know them, but it'd be good to hear you state them out.
No, I don't want to see Everton relegated. I mean, I don't want to see them challenging us for top of the table, but no, I don't want to see them relegated. And I tell you what, I don't know whether you've seen pictures of the new stadium, but wow, it looks fantastic. It'll be a
Yeah.
fabulous place to go.
Yeah, it would be too good for the championship for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in agreement. We want them to tease that they're going to go down, but then finish in 17th place every year. Okay.
I want them to go down for a season. I do. But
They probably deserve to.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a different story.
The last couple of seasons, I think they deserve to. But I'm just because I've got a couple of Blues in my family, cousins, and I'm always on at them. You know, again, you know, I just wish they could go down for a season, but we all know when you go down, you're usually going to stay down. And I would think if Everton go down to the Championship, they might even do a Leeds where they go down for a while. So it's just one of those. I would miss the derbies though. I mean, there's nothing like it. You know, going to Goodison or Anfield to go see them. The derbies in the last couple of years though, to me, I mean. Obviously, Stephen, you'll remember where you were able to put in a really hard tackle. You can't do that these days, and I think the bite has gone out of the derby.
Yeah. When you think of the Peter Reid and Graham Souness clashing in midfield. I mean, I saw it. I remember watching a derby between Liverpool and Everton at Anfield, and it was a goalless draw. And it was one of the best games I've ever seen. This is when they were both at the top of the table. I mean, those derbies were great. I knew they were going to forget Jordan Pickford and that wonderful goal headed in by Origi. I mean, these are just great memories. I mean, that final couple of minutes at Anfield was just unbelievable. No, I love the derbies. I mean, I remember going to Goodison to see the first derby back in 1962 when Roger Hunt scored in the last minute to equalise. And it was about 73,000 in Goodison. It was just fantastic. I mean, there hadn't been a derby between them in the league for about 10 years. Yeah, something like 10 years. So I think Everton went down about 1953. So they hadn't had a derby for many, many years. That was just great. I mean, I loved the derby.
Yeah, they just got I mean, Everton are Everton. You know, they haven't won trophy in God knows how many years. I hope it continues.
1995, they haven't won anything. It was that great chant. They haven't won a trophy. They haven't won a trophy. I haven't won a trophy since 1995.
The one thing I would say though, Stephen, is I wouldn't mind being back at Wembley playing Everton in a final. I think it'd be great for the city. It's been too long, but we all know, you know. I mean, you know, maybe Everton's luck will change. Maybe they'll get in the top 10. But that's about it. So let's come to, you know, today. What are your thoughts on the season ahead? Obviously, we've got a new manager. We had 9 wonderful years with Klopp. What's your thoughts coming up for the season ahead?
I think it's important to approach the season ahead with no expectations. I don't know anything about Arne Slot at all. No idea. And I'll be honest, I don't think I'd ever really heard of him before he came to Liverpool. It's going to be I'm assuming it's going to be a season of transition, a bit like after Ferguson or Matt Busby had left their clubs, and not at Liverpool's case because there was a continuation. But I think it's going to be a difficult season, and I would urge Liverpool fans not to expect too much. I mean, I hope we'll do reasonably well, but I'm not anticipating that we're going to be necessarily challenging for the title. I think we'll be okay because we've still got the same bunch of players, and no doubt there will be a few additions to the squad. So I just don't know. As I say, I think it's probably best to approach the season not expecting too much, but I fear that I'm going to be in a minority. I suspect Liverpool fans will be anticipating winning the title.
Well, I mean, I think every season the thought is Liverpool should be up there challenging every single season. But I think, there's a bit of a hangover, I would think, from Klopp. Like I alluded, 9 years with Klopp. So it's like a marriage that's fallen apart. Well, not fallen apart, but it's like somebody's passed away. Klopp's not dead. He just 9 years was his. He had enough. Whether people want to make up stories like it's FSG why he left, or it's this or that, he left because he was tired. You can see how much better he looks already. Some sun on his face. But I think we've got to go into this like let's slot. Bring in the players like who he thinks needs to come in. People also saying like he's not going to have a say because he's the coach, he's not the manager. Of course, Slot's going to have a say. Edwards and Hughes aren't just going to leave Billy Bob in the back garden and go, there you go. There's going to be some talk of like who he needs. But I think we have to be realistic about the season ahead. I'm just looking forward to football getting back. I haven't really watched too much of the Euros. I just needed a break from football after Klopp left. So I'm ready for the new season to start. But like you said, I think it's a transitional period. Steve, I know you'll always say we'll win the league. I love your positivity. But I just think we have to go into it with see what we do. I think we'll make top four. I do.
I mean, I think it's a different situation than when Fergie left. Right, he left a team that was in decay. You got the most out of it that last season. They didn't follow up with the manager or the players. Their director of football didn't know what he was doing. So I think we have the core of a team that was in for 4 trophies till April, and just adding a couple pieces, I think we'll at least be right around there. And but like you said, I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to to the team, and I always look forward to adding 1 or 2 players just to change the chemistry a little bit. But I think this season, the coach is that. Right, he changes the chemistry. So I think you'll see a lot of the players that were on the peripheral maybe think that they can have a chance to be more of a regular part of the team. And who knows, man? We go into it fresh like everybody else. There's a lot of football being played this summer, so a lot of the top teams will be affected by that. So it's there for taking, man. I'm there. I'm going to predict them to win the league just like I do every year.
I think top 4 is more realistic.
I know. One day I'll be right.
maybe Manchester City will finally be docked 10 points or more, and I'll have all their titles taken away from them. I somehow doubt that's ever going to happen. But I mean, that's the side of modern football that really bugs me. Is the way the financial fair play rules are abused. I mean, when FSG bought Liverpool, they spoke to the Premiership and they said, "You got these rules. You're going to keep these rules. Are you going to make sure that those rules operate and are kept?" And the Premiership, of course, said, "Yeah," but they haven't done.
Well, it's just that could be a whole nother episode, but it's just mind-boggling that Notts Forest and Everton get docked points. For one thing, and you've got 115 charges for City, who have this amount of money that they can just have the best lawyers in the world that can just appeal it, and it just goes round and round and round and round. But let's not forget, they do have a fantastic manager and they do have a fantastic football. So
absolutely.
It's what goes on off the pitch that bothers me. What they do on the pitch, they have. Rodri to me is the best DM in the world. He's absolutely astonishing to watch. But off the pitch, the cook and the books. I mean, we all know it. You know, it's just that's what I don't like either. But you know, I think we do it right. You know, whether you love FSG or not, I don't love FSG. I love Liverpool Football Club. These people going, you're an FSG lover. No, I love Liverpool Football Club, and we're run the right way. That's what I like.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we're not cooking the books. We're doing it the right way. Yes, we're not buying £100 million player every single summer. But you know, I'd rather do it the way we do it. You know, and it is what Klopp said. You know, we win trophies. We might not win a trophy every single season, but when we do win a trophy, it means much more to us.
Yes.
You know, but Stephen, you know, an hour has gone by so quickly. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on. When the episode goes out, we're going to put a link to Amazon for all your books.
Good.
Everyone, please go pick up one of many, many books. He even has books about Sir Alex Ferguson and Highbury. If you are a Man United supporter listening to this podcast, or an Arsenal supporter, who knows? You never know. Most of it's 99% Liverpool, but you never know. But please go out and check out Stephen's books. But again, thank you.